For as far as gaming has come this generation, and 2018 was a landmark year in terms of back-to-back quality, there are many outdated tropes that occasionally drag everything right down into pure tedium. It feels in many ways like we're increasingly caught between two mentalities. On one side, you've got blockbuster AAA titles where risk is minimized and game mechanics are smoothed out. Spider-Man, for example, didn't bring a single new idea to the table, but the ones that it chose to focus on were executed flawlessly. The flip side is anything with a far smaller budget, where new ideas can be tried out without the fear of a gargantuan price tag hanging on every button press. Somewhere in the middle is calculated innovation, and where the beauty of God of War's new combat system or Red Dead Redemption 2 survival mechanics come through. It's this middle Venn diagram that's the most satisfying, but actually sticking the landing is where a ton of developers completely come undone. I'm Scott from WhatCulture.com, and these are the 9 worst video game levels of 2018. Number 9, the pirate ship escape. God of War. Sticking out like a sore thumb when thinking back on God of War as an otherwise immaculate game with a phenomenal story and excellent pacing, the escape from hell by way of floating pirate ship felt like something from the PS2 generation, and not in a good way. See, revamped God of War plays like a mix of Dark Souls and something like God Hand. It's great for getting up close with enemies and carving your name through their chests, but as you forever need to actively rotate Kratos on the spot to shift the camera and move on to the next foe, or in this case various bonfires, things get awkward very fast. Of course, waves of enemies are bearing down on you the whole time, diverting your attention away from where it's actually needed. Yes, there's an obvious element of challenge implied, but a prominent criticism of God of War already came from being attacked off screen. Trying to keep these fires topped up while devoting time to 2 things at once only highlighted the limitations of this new system overall. Number 8, Gridlock. Call of Duty Black Ops 4. Black Ops 4 is easily the best Call of Duty since something as totemic as Modern Warfare 2, coming complete with a clearly Overwatch-inspired set of superpowered soldiers and levels that play into an incredibly fast pace. It all works surprisingly well despite the militaristic tone that Call of Duty has had trouble maintaining in the past, but Gridlock stands out as a notably naff inclusion that actively limits your combat possibilities rather than encouraging them. Like something from a bygone era, this map is essentially one giant capital I, 2 T-shapes joined at the base. You spawn in one of these T-zones and make your way towards the other, only to be gunned down by the opposition when crossing the middle causeway. There are a couple more routes around the outside of this middle path, but they're a camper's paradise, putting you in full view of another player who's always ready to take the shot. Obviously, Call of Duty players will insist there's a way to get good if you put enough time in, but when you're forever wandering down the same grey corridors, falling prey to cheap shots or just trying to get some yourself, it almost betrays the very progression that Black Ops 4 showcases everywhere else. Number 7, High Peak Castle. Dead Cells. The vast majority of Dead Cells is polished to a mirror sheen. The momentum of every jump, the satisfying kickback of every attack, quite literally every second of controlling your little warrior made of goop is a delight and perfectly connects to every impulse you have as a gamer, seasoned or otherwise. Then you hit High Peak Castle, and though you can change the pace of your approach to get through it relatively unscathed, the level is rammed with spear-wielding enemies that'll hit you through floors and through walls. They'll interrupt your combos, connect through enemies you're already overwhelmed by, they'll even jab at you from off-screen, being that their attack range is so huge they detect you before you've even seen them. Dead Cells is by definition a roguelike where multiple deaths to acquire better gear is key, so having High Peak Castle be placed near the end of a lengthy run only to mean you get sent back to the beginning if you mess up is agony. Number 6, the West End. Darksiders 3. The Darksiders franchise deserves so much more love. Personally, it's an all-time favorite, and I adore its spiritual continuation of something like the Legacy of Kain series, at least in terms of faux Shakespearean demons, enjoyably gothic lore, and oversized cartoonish weaponry. After 2 solid action titles, the former a God of War meets Zelda, and the latter bringing in a Diablo 3 style loot grind, the shuttering of THQ meant the original 4-game deal might never come to fruition. A total of 6 years passed before Darksiders 3 was even made real, and despite having fans cheering at its very existence, it then put the worst possible foot forward. Opening the game in a crummy grey and brown West End was clearly meant to be a throwback to the original game's first level, but where that got by because of the time period, a brilliant opening cutscene, and a backdrop of demons and giants attacking the city itself, Darksiders 3 is just incredibly flat and boring to look at. A far cry from caves oozing rivers of lava or even different parts of the city itself like a zoo filled with dinosaur bones, Darksiders 3 was already the weakest of the bunch thanks to combat that needed to be patched out immediately, leaving the game's overall first impression to be deflating as hell. Number 5, every kidnapping escape. Far Cry 5. How to make a fairly plodding, repetitive game even more annoying? Force the player to undergo semi-random kidnapping scenes where control is wrenched away and they get plunged into darkness only to fight their way back to where they were anyway. Yep, it's as banal as it sounds, and yet Ubisoft pulled this trick 3 times. There you are, minding your own business, moving from one mission to another, perhaps fishing or shooting up a combat zone full of goons, only for the game to stop responding and a cutscene to kick in. The bigger problem too is each one of these scenes comes with a monologue from the villain of whichever area you're in. They all get right up in your face, paraphrasing some prattle about the end times or how their leader Joseph Seed is the chosen one, only to wander off as you escape over and over and over again. Each underground area feels identical, and every escape goes the exact same way. Stealth first, grab weapon, gun people down, run for the exit. The epitome of Ubisoft's copy-paste design philosophy, each one of these was a real slog. Number 4, the tutorial. Kingdom Come Deliverance. Speaking of a real slog, Kingdom Come Deliverance eventually blossoms into one of the most rewarding, immersive, and detailed RPGs of all time, but boy is its opening tutorial a complete mess. Attempting to teach you the basics of combat whilst also maintaining that everything in this land must be arduously worked for in the name of realism, Kingdom Come Deliverance throws you up against the town hothead and asks you to retrieve some money from him. Naturally, it takes all of a few seconds to go from, please sir, can I bother you, to fists flying in all directions. But Kingdom Come's combat is based on timing and specific animation tell, both things that simply can't be practiced in a hand-to-hand brawl. Instead, your opponent locks you in a clinch animation and knees you whenever you get too close. Attempt to actually learn the controls and boom, you're clinched and thrown back again. Turns out you can't actually beat this guy, and the best way to complete the tutorial is to focus on the other side quests the game offers up instead. Suffice it to say, the reason Kingdom Come Deliverance didn't get mentioned more last year was likely down to such an atrocious introduction. Number 3, Distant Planet. Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Arguably one of the most divisive games in the entire gaming medium, you either love a good couple of games of Smash or despise its randomized nature. Sadly, even if you've gotten used to the franchise's mix of burst attacks winning matches out of nowhere, Distant Planet, first seen in Super Smash Bros. Brawl, is a creation from Satan himself. Awash in things that detract from the hyper-specific view of the action you need to actually play Smash Bros. With any degree of control, this stage sees the camera focus on a snail that peeks in from the corner of the frame instead. Zoomed all the way out, it's incredibly hard to see what's going on, what you need to respond to, and where to attack next. Worse still, the left side of the stage is a waterfall, meaning that if you land on here for even a second, your character gets plummeted off the edge and into the brink below. Combined, it's an utter chore to fight on Distant Planet, as your time is instead spent locating your character or just avoiding half the screen entirely. Number 2, every stealth level. Marvel's Spider-Man. Yep, these levels. The one portion of Spider-Man on PS4 that people just straight up try to forget, the handful of times you have to partake in its rote mid-2000s stealth mechanics feels as though the entire story grinds to a halt. You're triggering a part of the map to create a distraction, awkwardly shambling around corridors, hugging walls, and all the while never knowing where your opponents can really see. Oh, and if you mess up, it's back to the start to do it all over again. Though these segments succeeded in highlighting the fragility of Mary Jane and Miles Morales versus Peter Parker's power set, hence one of the levels where you actually work with Peter as he webs up thugs and you zip from cover to cover below, gameplay-wise, they're just not fleshed out enough. Thankfully, after a couple of these, you do get given a taser and can take the fight back to these patrolling goons one by one. The overall issue, though, was with a non-existent HUD, severely video gamey placement of environmental hazards, and a cut-to-fail state cutscene restarting you in the most jarring way possible. We know Miles Morales is going to play a major role in the next Spider-Man game, so hopefully MJ gets something better as well. Number 1, GUARMA, Red Dead Redemption 2. Okay, alright, I can totally see what Rockstar were going for. In the wake of 2010's Red Dead Redemption, every player was remarking on the unexpectedly brilliant inclusion of Mexico as a rather sizable extension of the game's map. The crossing into Mexico was fraught with gunfire and pirouetting bodies left, right, and center, and it was only topped off by Jose Gonzalez's So Far Away playing in the background as we peacefully rode forward into new territory. With so much potential and such a reputation to capitalize on, Red Dead Redemption 2 attempts to do one better. This time round, Rockstar take us to a chunk of the game with its own separated map, a swath of missions, and a completely different overall feel. The problem? It doesn't feel remotely well placed, cleaves the story clean in half, and comes off more like Red Dead Uncharted than anything that truly belongs. It doesn't help that the sequence only exists to further hammer home how full of excrement Dutch's plans always are, something that we'd had drummed into us many times beforehand, and getting through this part of the game just felt like a ludicrously expensive roadblock. And that is my list. 2018 might be behind us, but scores of its games are still worth revisiting, even with the occasional hiccup getting in the way. Let me know which level stuck out as just a little bit too naff down in the comments below. Jules' t-shirts are available over at shop.whatculture.com, and please check out the WhatCulture Gaming Podcast. I've been Scott from WhatCulture.com, and I'll catch you soon.
Look, my son. Look at the marvel that I have created. Look at the quality fabric hand-stitched by blind orphans. The perfect letter spacing calculated so meticulously that Rich Hudson had an erection for months about it. And a colouring so deep that I had to buy the dye off the dark web. Oh no, the beast has grown angry, angered by our drab fashion choices. I am such a fool to think that it wouldn't try to infect us with its perfect design. Quick, we must do something to appease the beast. Why don't we buy one from shop.whatculture.com? Look, it's already got Scott Nash.
Oh no!
Shop.whatculture.com WhatCulture.com! Quick, let's go and buy one right now! Let's go buy one right now!